You guys already know Christopher Sweat, Greystack Media. We're sitting here in Andy's home, which also you can't see everything, but there are like thousands of books. This is Andy Thayer. You may know Andy, and Andy will have you give an introduction, but you may know Andy because you've seen him on the ground. And he's been very active in the activist community over, since the late 70s in Chicago?
Yeah, I actually began organizing, if it can be called such, when I was in high school and got our high school newspaper shut down for a couple articles.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, what did the high school newspaper do?
Oh, God. I mean, it was Gestetner sheet.
Okay.
It was the only press in our one-stop light town.
Okay.
And I wrote an article about how, I'm trying to think what the first one was. Oh, they had screwed up on this big bond issue. I mean, a bond issue in a town of, I think it was like 1,500 people, or probably less than that. A bond issue in a town like that happens literally once every half century.
Okay.
And they built an athletic field, but either the way they designed it or the way they constructed it, it washed out after every big rain.
No.
Yeah. And there's a lot of money down the drain.
Sure.
And so I wrote an article pointing out the obvious.
Okay.
Without like pointing fingers at anyone. And all of a sudden our advisor to our student newspaper, who we'd never seen before, suddenly shows up, and it's like really nervous. You gotta run everything by me and all that sort of thing. Well, we didn't. The next issue, I wrote an article about how they were illegally operating their school incinerator against the explicit diktats of the county environmental board.
Whoa.
And that got the incinerator shut down.
Newspaper.
Yeah, I mean, it was against Gestetner sheet. It was against, I mean, to call it a newspaper, I mean, it was one step above mimeograph, okay?
Okay. Well, I mean, sorry that I'm like in the digital era.
But it was...
but it was a thin publication.
Very thin.
Okay.
With basically 3 of us who did all the work on it.
Wow.
Yeah.
But so some of your pieces ended up shutting down the incinerator?
Yeah.
Because
I mean, it was just one piece. I mean, it was literally 2 articles. One article got the paper in trouble. The second article got it shut down.
Whoa. And this was your first step into activism?
That was my first step into so-called journalism.
Whoa.
Yeah. But that was like 1977 or whatever, 76. I can't remember which. But anyway, so I went to school. I'm gay, and a one-stop light town. I was miserable, of course.
Sure.
I was in the closet, went to school, still in the closet.
Wow.
And that's a whole long story I won't bore you with. But the point is that my mom was an activist.
Okay.
And not someone who said, oh, I'm a big bad person. I mean, no ego in it.
Yeah.
She was, she did a lot of anti-pollution stuff. Against both nuclear waste as well as air pollution in Buffalo. She also, during the U.S. war in Vietnam, smuggled draft evaders across the border into Canada.
Wow.
She was their mom as they were going in the in her old green station wagon with a pole right in the middle of the windshield, the way they did back then. And she was their mom. And, we're just going to the Toronto Science Museum.
Wow.
Me and my son.
Okay.
Their phones were tapped, she said. My dad worked in aerospace.
Oh.
Military contracting.
Really?
Oh, yeah. No, it was awful shit.
Interesting.
But he supported her.
Okay. Supported her activist effort.
Yeah, they had he wasn't very a communicative person except with her.
Okay.
And so on one level, I never felt I really got to know my dad, but she and he were a team, and they talked about stuff a lot, serious issues, but they never tried to indoctrinate the kids. There were 4 of us.
Yep.
I was the youngest. And we went in different political directions, all 4 of us.
Okay.
Long story there. The point is that she never tried to indoctrinate me or the other kids, but I saw, as I thought about it more in later years, her courage and her doing it just because it was the right thing to do.
Okay.
Taking lots of risks, because he would have lost his job in a second.
If they had known that his
Oh,
wife
and
was
he would have
doing
been
that.
black. Yeah. And he would have been black belt. I mean, I think it's important in the history of whistleblowers, the only one who really emerged unscathed for all the many dozens of whistleblowers, most of whom I'm sure you already know. It was only Daniel Ellsberg
Okay.
who survived, because there was a movement, a large movement to survive him. And
Okay. What did he whistleblow on?
Oh, the Pentagon Papers.
Oh.
Pentagon Papers.
Was
Oh
this in
yeah,
the
totally,
80s?
totally. No. This was during the Vietnam War.
Oh.
Oh yeah, no, this
Was
is
this
big.
how we found
Pentagon.
out? Was this how the public started to find out that Vietnam
Oh
was
yeah.
a scam?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Absolutely. I mean, he
Okay.
worked for like the Rand Corporation or something. It's been a
Interesting.
long time.
But he was
since-
in the sector.
Oh,
and-
he was totally in the sector. He was
Okay.
totally, and actually exposed some important stuff in terms about the U.S. nuclear weapons program as well.
Okay.
But he died a few years ago. My aunt is going to be super pissed about my saying this, but because she's another one who doesn't call attention to her stuff.
Okay.
She was amongst those who sheltered him, I should say, in her rent-controlled Cambridge, Massachusetts apartment.
Oh, really?
While he was on the lam.
Whoa.
Yeah. And she hates me saying that, but sorry, Nancy.
Oh.
She didn't even come out with it until like about 5-10 years ago.
Interesting.
Yeah. There's a
Okay, I'm blown away.
Anyway, so I didn't know any of that. It was the point is, yeah, I've been around for a little while.
Yeah.
And I made every mistake there is as an activist, including leading with my ego and so forth.
Sure.
And when I see some of these young folks who are doing just the right thing for all the right reasons, I'm just blown away.
Okay.
Because it took me decades to learn.
To kind of dial in.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's the male ego, which
Sure.
I think is one of the most destructive things
In all elements.
in left politics
Okay.
or regular politics. And, it can lead you astray in many ways.
Sure.
And so I think it's important to temper that.
Do you think the ego, like what, makes one center the self over the kind of movement?
Absolutely. And it's a horribly destructive thing. And the other thing is centering your own organization
Okay.
over the movement. And we see that all the time. I think Chicago's got a huge problem with sectarianism. And the good thing is that when I think that accentuates when there aren't lots of people involved. I think that we have seen such a flood of new people coming in
Sure.
that it really makes the whole political scene, if you're going to call it that, much more healthy.
Okay.
I mean, there are people doing great stuff every day. One of the things that really came to mind while I was starting to see all of these little groups coming together and organizing. I mean, people are coming over to my apartment like daily to pick up signs
Sure.
and whistles. We've got some sort of a thing going here where people can pick up those ice out signs and the whistles and so forth. And it's been really great. And it's given me a little bit of the flavor of everything that's going on. But I remember reading about a dear friend of mine, Kevin Clark, who died, I think it was shortly before the pandemic hit.
Okay.
Or it may have been early on in the pandemic. He was a anti-Vietnam War activist,
Okay.
and he did many things besides subsequently big in the Palestinian solidarity movement with the I think it's called the International Solidarity Movement, ISM.
Okay.
And anyway, so I was tasked with helping write up his obituary, and I knew that he was particularly proud of an action that they did when the U.S. mined the harbors in North Vietnam,
Okay.
blockading it essentially.
Sure.
And so what they did, literally the next day, him and some of his buddies, they got into their old beater cars, started driving eastbound on the Eisenhower Expressway,
Okay.
put their flashers on, gradually slowed down and stopped them right by where the old main post office is, blocking the entire Eisenhower Expressway, which then totally screws up, of course, the Kennedy and the Dan Ryan, and basically shuts everything down.
Chicago.
Hey, and the thing was, hey, if you're going to blockade North Vietnam, we're going to blockade Chicago because this is a U.S. war on Vietnam.
Sure.
So what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Ooh. And so I was looking back through the Tribune archives. I say, I've got to find this article. I'm sure I found this article. But what was most fascinating is there were like 3 other actions against the war happening that same day that the Tribune reported upon. So this maelstrom of everyone coming around and organizing wasn't just about my dear friend Kevin Clark, but it was a true groundswell of everyone hitting from so many directions that the other side could not respond. And that's what we're seeing right now, is that all these little groups, they might stop this one or that one, but there's others doing 2 or 3 things at the same time. So it's like Gulliver's Travel, where, you know, the big man may be, you know, pinned to the ground and so forth, but there's all these people doing all these things around, these little people doing things around them that keeps the giant immobilized. And that's, I think, the key to how we're going to defeat ICE, how we're going to defeat Bovino and his border security thugs, is that things are coming from so many different directions that they can't respond to it all. And it's also changing public opinion. And that's super important. I mean, these big demonstrations are really important for bringing people together and letting them see the strength of the movement. But these little things, you know, just putting a sign up in a window and so forth, showing that ICE is so loathed in this town that they're having recruitment problems in spite of all the money they're throwing at these thugs. Now, there are a certain amount of sociopaths, and they gravitate to professions like that. But if they try to call out the National Guard, those are regular working class folks who are their weekend warriors, if you will. They're part of the community. A lot of them join the Guard because they just want to do the right thing. I mean, my dear friend Aaron Hughes, who is the Midwest coordinator for About Face Veterans Against the War, he joined up the Guard like the year after the big floods in the Mississippi River Basin. He just wanted help. I'm going to be filling up, you know, sandbags. I'm going to help my neighbors. Other people, you know, do it because they want tuition help or whatever. They do it for good reasons, many people. And they're regular working class folks. Those folks are being influenced by their neighbors right now. And so if Trump manages to get the courts to agree to send in, whether it's the Texas Guard or the Illinois Guard or whomever, he's going to have some real problems on their hands. If our side does the right thing, we attempt to talk to them. You know that your deployment is a huge waste of resources. We've got homeless folks in this town. We've got people that may or may not get their, you know, their food subsidies and so forth. We got a lot of problems. Do you think that the money spent on your deployment is really what most people, what your own family would want you to be doing?
But for the movement to talk to the Guard, that's one thing. But like, nobody in the movement wants to talk to ICE, right?
No, and I think for good reason. And I think for good reason, because these people, they joined up specifically because they want to be bullies. I mean, they're sociopaths, I think, most of them. If they haven't already quit, then, you know, I think the whole trajectory of what they're doing, these are hardened thugs. And fortunately, the vast majority of the U.S. society is not sociopaths. They are reachable. But we have to be smart about it. I mean, they're regular working class folks. The key to ending the U.S. war on Vietnam, in addition to the struggles of the Vietnamese themselves, was actually when the U.S. military began to crumble. And
Okay.
that began to crumble first by civilians organizing in the way that they are right now. People flood into the streets in Little Village whenever these thugs come around.
Sure.
Okay. And literally they are risking far more than with this.
Sure.
Whether they're citizens or not.
Right.
They're risking far more. And that kind of courage, though, by civilian movements, that's what you saw like with my dear friend Kevin Clark.
Okay.
That people were doing those kind of direct actions in addition to the fully legal and much safer stuff that
Right.
people, because they got kids, they got to go home to that night or whatever, for good reason, aren't taking, some risks that others might.
Right.
But that kind of courage then sends a message to working class people in uniform. Hey, this civilian movement is serious.
Sure.
They are taking serious risks themselves. So if I disobey an illegal order, things may not turn out so badly for me. I mean, they're put into between a rock and a hard space. I mean, what was it? The Fort, I want to say it's the Fort Hood 40 or something like that. They had been ordered out of Texas, or wherever the hell Fort Hood is, I believe it's Texas, to go to respond to the riots following Dr. King's assassination in 1968 to Chicago. And they did deploy.
Okay.
When they were then asked to deploy during the Democratic National Convention,
Sure.
they had conversations about it on the base.
Okay.
And they said, no, we're not going.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah. And this was happening around the country. This was part of the U.S. military crumbling.
Sure.
And it was the key then was that the generals spoke to Tricky Dick Nixon, that great peacemonger.
Yeah.
Humanitarian.
Right.
Humanitarian. Yeah. I'll show you one of my books in a second here.
Okay.
While I'm reading up on Tricky Dick.
Please.
He was forced to begin winding down the Vietnam after he had expanded it greatly with the expansion of the war into Cambodia. But this is how these thugs in ICE can be defeated.
Right.
And you saw when Nixon was finally kicked out of office, people say, oh, great politicians, Woodward and Bernstein. Yeah, they did their part. But really, what happened was that Tricky Dick's approval ratings went right into the toilet.
Sure.
And that's when the other thugs who were all in favor of war and so forth, all the bad shit, that's when they cut their ties.
But I will say this, the government used to be a house in Washington, D.C., and then the Capitol was down the street.
Mm-hmm.
And then, years went on, each executive tried to figure out a new way to get more power and authority and also new ways to extort the public. Then 9/11 happened. Now we're 25 years past, 24 years past 9/11, but we're only a few months past the big, beautiful bill.
Right.
We have a completely different person in the executive branch, right? Donald Trump. Very, very different than some of these other presidents, which we could still critique.
Arguably, Tricky Dick had a good deal of Trumpism in him.
Just didn't have the levers of power.
Yeah.
He didn't have the large-scale surveillance state.
Yeah, well,
he didn't have the domestic capabilities to shape public behavior.
You've read about COINTELPRO, right?
Yes, but if we get into COINTELPRO, it's a very small FBI operation compared to the size.
Mobilizing local police forces around the country. It wasn't COINTELPRO who killed the Illinois Black Panthers, but they were working hand in glove with the Red Squads in cities right around the country.
I'm just saying that these types of police or domestic disruption that governments carry out is so small in comparison to now we have the NSA, who's been doing large-scale data collection on the public.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, they
decades.
I will give it to you, Chris, that they've got technological tools
and physical.
where they can be pointing a device at this window and recording this whole thing. They don't need to put a bug in this apartment.
Right, but if they wanted to
yeah.
bug the apartment, I have a laptop. We have two,
Oh, of
three,
course.
we have 4 cell
Oh,
phones.
yes.
Yes, you don't
Yes,
need
indeed.
a wire
Oh,
or
yeah,
a physical
that's my
presence
point.
anymore.
That's my
That's
point.
what the NSA does.
Yes.
Right. So my
Yeah.
point is,
Thank you, Edward Snowden, for exposing some of that.
yeah, and then going to Russia and taking
Whatever.
citizenship.
Well.
But we'll talk about this because we have a lot to talk about. Because I agree.
That's a real digression.
It is. We'll get to that though. But I agree with your points, Andy. I'm just wondering though, is this like have you seen Customs and Border Patrol operating on the interior of the country anytime that you've been an activist on the ground? Except
not
for this
until
year?
recently.
Except
not
for
until
this year.
recent. Yeah.
But have you seen this type of immigration enforcement style?
No. But I think you can look back at the Obama years, who was dubbed the deporter in chief with good reason, because he deported more immigrants and refugees than any president before him.
Right.
He also went after more whistleblowers than every single president combined before him. And so, I was just responding to a post earlier today that says, "Oh, those who say the Democrats are just the same as Republicans are screwed." It was like, no one says that.
Sure.
But what we do say is they enable. So when the horrible, USA Patriot Act came down, it's not like it was repealed under Obama.
Right.
And in fact, the weekly kill lists, we're concerned with good reason about people being blown away just off the coast of Venezuela and Colombia right now. Well, hello, it was Obama who helped pave the way with that.
Right.
With these weekly kill lists. We're blowing away people from, Somalia to Yemen to whatever, probably a dozen countries. So it's horrible what's going on now. But the Democrats, for example, they're supporting this super far right anti-immigration bill last summer, paved the way for what? They legitimized it. And when Obama came into office, in spite of all the evidence coming out about the CIA extraordinarily renditioning people from countries around the world to like the torture chambers of Bashar al-Assad's Syria or el-Sisi's Egypt and any number of horrible, horrible torture prisons, he said, we're going to look forward, not backwards. Which again, you let all these thugs off the hook. To my mind, that was as bad as releasing all these January 6th rioters. It's just unconscionable. So yeah, they're not the same. And what we've seen is that for the last 2 or 3 decades, starting especially with Bill Clinton, the Democrats moved to the right so as to steal the Republicans' thunder, steal their brand. And the Republicans, so as to preserve their brand, move even farther to right. And so we started out with the silly Tea Party with the tri-corner hats and so forth. And now we've got these explicitly neo-fascist patriot boys and so forth, including here in the CPD.
Sure.
I've given Mayor Johnson shit about that. It's like he campaigned about getting rid of these, thugs, or neo-fascist thugs that were exposed thanks to some intrepid reporting, and he hasn't.
Right.
So,
and he also gets support from some of the organizations that are supposedly auditing the police.
Okay, I don't.
Yeah, no, I'm saying.
Yeah, I take your word for it, Chris. Yeah,
which is fascinating how people will put party politics over like good outcomes.
Yeah, and I think actually, and oftentimes people on the far right will say, well, Obama did this and Obama did that, and people on our say, well, that's whataboutism. Well, whataboutism sometimes has some real validity, and while the people saying it may not be of good character and are totally cynical about it, the left, when it defends the undefensible, I think, does our movements a huge disservice. We've got, of course, a great mayoral victory now in New York City, but if they do not hold him accountable for any backsliding he does, then you're going to end up in a much worse position with people demoralized because he's not coming through on some of his major program planks.
Yeah, I see that. And if Chicago is an example, then the likelihood of holding him accountable, in my opinion, is low. But New York is a completely different community
Now,
than
I won't even
Chicago.
attempt to, but I will say this. I think Chicagoans are doing me really proud, doing our city really proud. I mean, for all the screwed up things about this city, and we know about them.
Sure.
Chicago regular folks right around the city are doing the legacy of activism. Founded the IWW here in 1905.
Sure.
It played a great role in the struggles against racism, despite Richard J. Daley. And before that, I mean, there's a rich history of activism in this city, including right here in Uptown.
Right.
But that is being honored right now. And I think setting an example for the rest of the country, because I think for all the horribleness that we've experienced over the past couple of months, especially, the fact that people are getting to know their neighbors, that these little organizations all around the city are welling up like mushrooms after rain, to the point where it's very difficult for Bovino at all to pull off everything that they want to do. I mean, they're still injuring any number of people. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to be too optimistic.
Yeah.
But they have made his job much more difficult. And I think more and more people are getting involved. I just showed up to a picket in front of the Target on Peterson Avenue this afternoon, expecting, it'll be a good turnout if there's a dozen people there.
Okay.
Several dozen people in the cold. And it was a great event. And you're seeing that right around the city. And I think it's actually pointing to the way to other cities like Memphis and others in the future that may be hit. This is how we can defeat these people. This is how we can defeat ICE, which is the most critical. If we can defeat ICE and Border Patrol in this city, I think it'll be a wonderful example to the rest of the nation about the way forward to defeat Trump. And I am very proud of our city right now. I mean, the attorneys, and I hang around with a lot of attorneys. I worked 22 years as non-attorney, I should have emphasized. I'm not an attorney, okay? People say I am mistakenly.
Sure.
But they have said in these suits that it's actually the reporting by people right around the city and the courage of people to come out and do those recordings, the other activism, that is what has made these lawsuits and the great court victory that we won last Thursday possible. Sure. Now, Bovino's out there going rampaging still, injuring people still. But I think, and I don't think I'm being overly optimistic here, I think we're beginning to see the tide turn.
Do you think that? But what we are also seeing is just the cost piling up. So spending the whole day on the South Side yesterday and just seeing how devastating it is to the community and the
I mean,
businesses
it's wrecking not only the economy, but it's exhausting for the people who are doing the organizing. I mean, hanging out, especially in the cold, for hours and hours on end when you've got kids, you've got a job, you may have school on top of that, you got bills to pay, you need to do your daily whatever. This is why it takes so many people coming out to make this possible. And thank God we're seeing it, because if it was just left to people who are already organized circa September 1st, we'd be in bad shape. But what you're seeing is a lot of people getting themselves organized.
But does the ground go into this sort of soft war of attrition with the levers of power?
Well, they I can't think of the conjugation of the word, but they attrition too.
Yeah.
The other side does.
Right.
And they're attritioning not only their people as in not making their recruitment goals, but also at a certain point, some of those people flip out and just quit. And also their polling numbers are finally beginning to go. And Trump saying there's no inflation is not sailing with people.
Right.
And Trump saying the economy is great is not sailing with people.
Right. But we're still a year and a half from an election.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
also, he has the House and the Senate, and he has shown that he's willing to choke us out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like SNAP is apparently not funded anymore at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to have the capacity for our travel for the holidays, even if they reverse the
You think people
situation.
are going to be happy about that?
Exactly.
Including,
and we would still
including hardcore mega heads?
No, they're not. And
Yeah.
we're still a year and a half out from an election.
And I'm just saying is that they control everything. And
that would just be the
can't-
midterm, right? The federal election for the president, that's 3.5 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
So do you from
Nixon was how many years away from leaving office when he was forced out?
He was, and he also was in a...
He won a landslide in his election. I remember, I was a kid, but I remember election night. You know, my mom was, of course, for McGovern.
Okay.
And I can remember her allowing me to stay up until, was it 3 a.m. or whatever crazy time he did his acceptance speech.
Sure.
I said, Mom, how can he lose? There's all those thousands of people there in this auditorium.
Sure.
She said, well, you know, Andrew, she knew what was going to happen.
Right.
All the Democrats had deserted him, of course, and they were all for Nixon. Nixon won the biggest electoral landslide to date, where McGovern only won Massachusetts and D.C.
Yeah.
That was the biggest
But this
electoral.
was back in the day when we cared about electoral outcomes and respected them. So, are we in an environment where we're respecting electoral outcomes across the board? Does half the country say that the election in 2020 was illegitimate?
Well,
because we are in this post-reality where we're dealing with fictions in the media narratives and in the political institutions.
One of the biggest fictions is the majority of people supported one or another party in 2020.
Okay.
Or supported in 2024. 2024.
But do you see
but let me finish here, Chris.
Okay.
Because this is a problem with polling. This is a problem also with the way the media normally talks about how most Americans feel. You know how many people, what percentage of adults voted for Trump in 2024? What percentage of adults?
I wasn't talking about the poll.
No. Look, how many people? 24%. Harris won 23%. 50, do the math. 53% said none of the above. It wasn't worth them going to the polls. Or maybe because the prison industrial complex, they couldn't vote. Or they voted for tiny third parties. The fact of the matter is that people have been disengaging from electoral politics. They may be passionate about what's going on in their neighborhood and pissed off about it, but they haven't seen a solution coming from either party. The Democrats are loathed even more than the Republicans now.
Right.
And we know that probably the way things are going to go in the midterms is that the Democrats will pick up some stuff. I mean, obviously all the gerrymandering, the fight over that. The point of the matter is that people are becoming disengaged from electoral politics. And that was actually the key to the turn. Was right here in this city in 1968, and I've written about this, the key to the turn in what was called the New Left. Because the New Left before the 68 Democratic Convention was, Tricky Dick Nixon, he's McCarthy, he's horrible.
Sure.
Right-wing warmonger. We don't care what he's saying about peace with honor or whatever. We know he's an asshole.
Yeah.
Pardon my French. At the same time, they had some faith in the Democrats. The SDS slogan, big faction of it, was half the way with LBJ.
Okay.
That we like his domestic programs. Maybe we can convince him about the war.
Yep.
And then, of course, he dropped out, and they tried to coronate Hubert Humphrey, who had not won a single primary. And people were saying, well, we'll be clean for Gene, or we'll be for, Robert Kennedy. And then their heads get bashed in the streets of Chicago by a Democratic Party mayor. And that really shook up, especially the white New Left.
Mm-hmm.
And people became immensely disenchanted with both parties. And they decided, we've got to do it ourselves. And that was the key to the radicalization and the power of the New Left after that.
Sure.
Because Tricky Dick Nixon he was elected. Oh, he's going to be in for 4 years. What the fuck can we do? He might be in for 8 years. What can we do? This is horrible. People decided they had to do it themselves. Did you know that in this town, in August 1968, the Black Panther Party, which had started, I think it was 63, they didn't even have a chapter in this town.
Sure.
In August 1968. By December of the following year, they were so powerful that the other side decided that they needed to assassinate the Illinois Black Panther leader, as well as our Chicago Black Panther leader, Mark Clark and Fred Hampton. That's how powerful they'd become, because people had made the decision, the parties aren't going to save us, we have to do it ourselves. And that was the power, really, of the Panthers' free breakfast programs, free medical programs, and so forth. They were embarrassing the crap out of the federal government. And Richard Nixon, did you know that Richard Nixon expanded affirmative action on a national scale far more than any president before or after him? He quintupled food stamps because the Panthers were doing it. They were embarrassing the crap out of the federal government. Nixon was no friend of the environment. And yet we got the EPA, we got the Clean Air Act, we got the Clean Water Act, and so forth.
Yeah.
I mean, and the gay movement, there had been a few riots before Stonewall. A lot of people don't know this.
Okay.
Riots went. Same issues typically in terms of police brutality.
Yeah.
What made Stonewall in June of 1969 different was not that people threw rocks or bricks or whatever, because that had all been done before.
Yeah.
What made it different is that people organized afterwards, and they organized on a very different level than the homophile movement before it. Homophile movement, for students of gay history, was been around since Harry Hayes' time in the early 50s. And after they purged Harry Hay, who is a former Communist Party member,
okay,
they became very respectable, very to the right of the NAACP in terms of, we need to convince politicians, hey, sir, you really should give us our rights. We're really nice people. We're really nice people. And the same thing with psychologists and so forth. It was all this hat in hand, please have pity on us organizing.
Okay.
And there were courageous people doing it, but the politics were for shit. And what happened is that people, including many of those gay activists who were in the Stonewall Inn that night, as well as those who came around who didn't have the good fortune of being part of the riots, they decided, we need to make the change ourselves. Gay is good. Black is beautiful. The problem isn't us. It's the racist society, or it's the homophobic society. And so it was organizing on a very different level. And so they were attacking the politicians rather than trying to appease them. They were attacking the so-called experts rather than trying to appease them. They were doing the ZAPs, the Gay Liberation Front organizations. And this was a very different kind of organizing. Now, some things were, in my opinion, pretty stupid, like the, Weathermen Days of Rage or whatever.
Okay.
But there was a lot of good stuff, like my dear friend, Kevin Clark was involved with. And it radicalized also the women's movement. A lot of those lesbian activists, they radicalized the women's movement. They pushed aside the hidebound organizers, the National Organization of Women, the Betty Friedan's and so forth. Mm-hmm. And that's how we got Roe v. Wade. And none of that happened because there was an election. None of that happened because they waited until, oh gosh, well, the midterms are going to, maybe we can, persuade our politician friends to do something nice for her. We're going to elect Mr. Nice Guy who's going to free us.
Sure.
That's the whole point. And we've seen this not just in the 1960s. We saw it in the Great Depression.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's a whole nother chapter, and I will not bore you with that. That's another film.
Okay.
The point is that people made their own history because they were disgusted with what both politicians are. It was coming on the news right now that the Senate Democrats are about to cave to Trump on opening up the government. Now, unfortunately, the story that I read didn't say anything about what provisions, concessions, if any, that the Democrats got in terms of SNAP and health insurance and so forth. I mean, we'll see what the news says, but I'm not optimistic. The point is that the politicians won't free us. The courts won't free us. Clearly, they had 4 years to put Trump where he needed to be during the Biden years, and they effed up every single one of them, and the guy was able to run for re-election. This convicted felon was able to run for re-election. And all the court cases against him, all that effort and all that money went for naught.
Yeah.
I mean,
January
6th.
Can we back up for a second? So I don't read the news. And I also build models for analyzing state behavior. And I do review books on social movements for the political science and social science community. And I am building quantitative and analytical techniques for all types of political
just a warning,
phenomena.
Despite all these books,
so let me
I'm not an academic.
Yeah, but this is what I'm trying to tell you. So don't disagree with me and then say I'm talking about the news, because I don't need to watch the news. I'm going to write books on state behavior that are going to inform how people analyze it. The reason I asked this question about government repression and the kind of authoritarian stuff that we're seeing, and remember, I'm on the ground too, so I don't do this behind a desk. There's a lot of people that would, but that's not me.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm rarely behind the desk. This is what I was thinking about. So one of the social scientists, she's Syrian American.
Okay.
And she was just writing about her perspective on social movements, starting with basically what would be considered like the onset of the revolution in Syria.
The Arab Spring?
The Arab Spring gets mislabeled into...
I know.
But the Syrian Revolution from 2012 to now. And she was looking at it from more of like a emotional perspective, not necessarily like the logical process-driven way of what does the political dissent look like in that type of environment. Because you have to think like more than 600,000 Syrians died dissenting with the Syrian government.
Yeah.
There was an election like 3 nights ago, I think it was in Tanzania, and the response to perceiving an illegitimate election was so strong. A large sect of the society went to the ground. It's like 3 or 4 nights ago. And the government killed over 1,000 people. Summary execution in the street. Okay? These are some of the things, like, not in a suppressing way, but like some of the things I think about that are like the luxuries of America.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Is no matter how decrepit these institutions get, and hopefully we can refresh them, because I totally agree with what you're saying, is we shouldn't wait for anything to kind of exercise our will. We should express that, and we should continue to do so no matter how things kind of shapeshift. But I just wonder, like, this government just seems more powerful than any government in this history. And and again, only reason I would point this out, again, I don't read the news, is that I am the news, is that, and I'm an analyst, not a commentator. But for the news, or for the government, like, I was just thinking about Wall Street regulation. Because, I go to the trading firms occasionally, and we have a presence in Manhattan.
Yeah.
And I forgot the president. You might know his name, maybe help me out. It was probably the late 20s, just at the onset of the Depression.
Oh, Herbert Hoover.
Hoover, okay.
Yeah.
He had like no levers whatsoever available to like shape Wall Street behavior. And this was like when, what was his name? Joe Kennedy was doing market manipulation.
Yeah.
There was like absolutely no regulation on Wall Street. basically the market regulator was J.P. Morgan, and then a small cluster of other firms like Lehman Brothers. And
Well,
this,
just remember, they did have the
here's my
Sherman
point, in the late
Antitrust
20s,
Act.
in the late 20s, that came after, right? This came like towards the late 20s. Okay. But JP Morgan was in the market in the late 1800s through the early 1910s and 20s with no regulation or oversight. So my point is, the Securities and Exchange Commission was created in like the 30s or 40s.
Right.
This is my point.
Yeah.
Okay. There was no regulator. So the president had no power to shape the market. It didn't exist. Okay. And there were a number of presidents that didn't have the power to shape that market.
Well, I mean,
mind you, hold on, let me finish.
Okay.
Just work with me. Okay. Mind you, there was no Federal Reserve Bank.
Yeah.
No, straight up. Okay.
Yeah.
And when we talk about like one of the most inflationary elements in our society, one of them is that the political economy of elites can print money.
Right.
Which puts us at a massive disadvantage, especially when groceries rent. I mean, again, I'm not saying these are impossible things, but it just made me think about like, man, we might have been frustrated with these previous executive presidents, these damn politicians, but the government is just so different today than it was. And I'm asking for your opinion. I'm not. I'm not saying
I'm about to give it.
Yeah.
I mean, you did have the trust busting in the early part of the 20th century before the Great Depression
with Carnegie and.
And you also had, of course, Roosevelt, declaring a bank holiday, during the Great Depression and shutting everything down. I mean. And it pissed off a lot of traditional Republicans and the Supreme Court, which was very conservative at that point. But I mean, as Roosevelt said, you can either work with me or have a revolution. I mean, I'm not getting the quote exactly
but
correct,
I'm sure it was somewhat similar to that.
It was very similar to that. And he was right. I mean, you also... you had a mass fascist movement in this country, the Silver Shirts, Father Coughlin and so forth in the 30s and so forth. But fortunately, we didn't have it at the level of Nazi Germany or fascist Italy. So there have been times, I think one of the things, they may think that they control so much right now in terms of the market and so forth, but also the market works at such a speed now. I mean, you look at how they had to make decisions within hours during the 08-09 meltdown. And if anything, with things like cryptocurrency and so forth, I mean, the cat in that respect is way out of the bag. And I mean, I'm no economics expert, but the bubble in AI right now, the fact that 40%, according to the Financial Times, of the GDP growth, I should say, in the United States this year has been simply AI investment. The fact that consumer spending right now is basically only being buoyed by a super high stock market, which is mainly rich people. And they're buying the expensive homes. They're buying the luxury goods, whereas consumer spending for the rest of us is, and also we're getting job losses, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, major layoffs just in the past few weeks. And people saying, I don't care what Trump says, but inflation is cutting into my real earning power.
Yeah.
That there are real problems in the economy right now. And especially with the doofus in the White House we got now and the doofuses he surrounds him. If there is a market crash of some sort, I think actually they've got less control over it than they had maybe a few decades ago. And it's an integrated world economy. So the rest of the world's economy, in many respects, has been worse than the United States. The advanced industrial powers. I mean, I think Britain's economic growth has been like 1%. And older people like myself will remember from the 1980s. You ever see the movie Die Hard?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, First Die Hard, it's the Nakatomi Corporation. They're
Yep.
taking over the world. That was it was the Japanese we're going to crush. It's not the Chinese. And da 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 da. Well, Japan had basically almost no growth over the decades since. And a lot of that's got to do with the lack of immigration. I mean, Trump is really screwing up their shit right now. I mean, the cutoff of immigration is not only hurting labor-intensive industries such as meatpacking, et cetera, agriculture, where they're dependent upon undocumented folks, but also they are killing the golden goose in terms of the universities and that whole infrastructure that Trumpistas loathe, which has been key to United States supremacy and the world economy. I'm no American patriot, and that's another discussion. I think that, frankly, patriotism is a form of racism, and that's, again, another discussion. But the point is that I think at a certain point, these capitalists, we've already seen it with Musk to an extent. I mean, he was a total turd, don't get me wrong. But they got to be pissed off because Trump right now is killing the goose that laid the golden egg. What has made the United States economy good for the rich, not for the rest of us, has been all of this investment in advanced technology. And Europe, Western Europe, is incredibly jealous over the fact that we've had the innovation and so forth that we've had. The Chinese are doing it as well. But most advanced industrial countries are in really deep trouble right now. So I think there's a lot of instability in the world, and I think their ability to control it is actually slipping. That's my take, and I say that as a non-economist, someone who for 45 years was mainly a secretary with a good title.
That's cool, though. At an awesome place, too.
I read a lot of shit.
Okay. But, and we'll come to your final thoughts in a second.
Mm-hmm.
The piece that you wrote, that you put out on our platform, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Are we in fascism?
Yeah.
How do you feel about that piece? I know you kind of wrote it in a little bit different place than what we're in right now.
Oh, of course.
Would you agree?
Oh, yeah.
I think we released it in June, right? Or July.
Yeah, it was before the big ice raids and so on and so forth. And the major thing, my point was that we can do a lot of things that people actually living in fascism, real fascism, not just the epithet fascism, people in real fascism did not have the ability to do. That when they did it, they took such huge risks in a way that we cannot imagine in Nazi Germany. And the difference was that a real fascist movement is a movement of middle class, upper middle class people, shopkeepers, petty government officials, small business people of all sorts, mobilized in the streets, who would physically smash. They would attack a No King's March before it got anywhere near that size. And they would murder people. They would bludgeon people. We could not be sitting across here and that window would have been broken out by a brick many times over by the time you even arrived here tonight. The point is that it's a mass movement in the streets which augments the power of the state immensely to repress the left, to crush the unions, to crush every little bit of independent organized, even Catholic youth organizations. I mean, conservative. There could not be anything independent of the Nazi Party.
Sure.
And they totally atomized society. In spite of that, working class people, as well as others in society, did attempt to organize against the Nazis in Germany. I mean, people have heard of the White Rose Society and so forth, which was, upper middle class kids who put out some flyers and so forth, rapidly rolled up. There was also lots of working class organizing in the factories and so forth, rapidly rolled up because the smothering effect of this mass movement of the right wing could nip it in the bud before it became anything
Sure.
that would remotely challenge the power of the local state level and the national state. We have the opportunity to use the so-called democratic freedoms, the First Amendment and so forth,
Right.
in a way that they never did.
Okay.
You know, I mean, they had it in Weimar Germany before, 1933. But even for several years before Hitler's formal ascension to power in January 1933, people are taking their lives into their own hand for simply doing the stuff that we've been doing in the streets of Chicago, as long as I've been around.
Okay.
And so we have an immense opportunity to use their various levers, what democratic freedoms that have been won in this country due to people dying for them.
Yeah.
I mean, people don't know this, but really the First Amendment really didn't start to get established in terms of people's ability, working class people's ability to assemble in the streets until the IWW free speech fights in the teens of the last century. They did it for the rest of us. And just in my lifetime, it's the First Amendment right to assemble here in Chicago has been a
moving target.
And we have won some much greater freedoms thanks to, it's a long story, I won't go into it, but people organizing the streets. It was very different back in 2003, 2004, 2005, when people like myself and other organizers were routinely arrested for doing stuff that people take for granted today. And it wasn't, me, big bad ass, revolution or whatever that did it. Frankly, it was the black youth who responded to the release of the Laquan McDonald police murder video, flooding the streets of Chicago, making a mockery of Section 10-8-330 of the Chicago Municipal Code, under which I and others have been arrested numerous times.
Right.
They made it possible for people to organize and be in the streets without permits and all that kind of crap that other cities like New York, I understand, are really locked down. And it takes a mass movement to win those sort of things. It's not to dint of me and other organizers that happened. It was mass movements of black youth following the release of the Laquan McDonald murder video against, I might add, a really nasty Chicago mayor, Rahm Emanuel, who's trying to resurrect his political career, which was delightfully destroyed by the black youth in that time. 16 shots in a cover-up, Rahm Emanuel. But that was won by regular folks. They didn't wait for an election.
Right.
They made it so that Rahm knew his numbers were so bad, he didn't even bother running for re-election.
Sure.
We got another turd in power after that, but she was also short-lived too.
True, and potentially the latest one might be short-lived, but we'll see where that would leave us if that is the case.
I mean, I will say this. I mean, I've had a lot of criticisms of Brandon Johnson. He has done some things right. I think he relied on people that were just loathsome, and he made tons of mistakes. I mean, really lots of unforced errors. And that's a whole other story, but I would not put him in the same camp as Lori Lightfoot or Rahm Emanuel.
That's fair.
And we've got a low standard for politicians in this town, but I think he means well.
Yeah.
But
the only thing I would say about Brandon Johnson and Governor J.B. Pritzker is that they have executive authority, and they have decided to not use their executive authority
to arrest ICE, to arrest
or to intervene
Patrol.
in any way, shape, or form. And they also have provided the rails for people to go take their own personal risk. And then it sounds like they co-opt that personal risk that people like yourself and others are taking without like bearing the burden of the cost.
I mean, one thing I will say is that being able to put up signs provided by the city of Chicago saying no, ICE is not allowed in this establishment without a warrant and so forth, I think that has been helpful. That has help people. One of the things that I know that my About Face Veterans Against the War friends, such as Aaron Hughes, have been pushing, and I think rightfully so, is if the National Guard is deployed to Chicago and the suburbs here, J.B. Pritzker, are you going to use your billions to help legally defend them? Are you going to make Illinois a sanctuary state for those who refuse to follow illegal orders? And we just won a great court victory in Portland, I understand, on the issue of the deployment of National Guard. We've only got a temporary restraining order in terms of that here in Chicago, and it goes up before the U.S. Supreme Court, our dear friends, I believe on the 18th of this month.
Okay.
But really, the rubber hits the road in terms of the National Guard pretty soon here in this town, because if the Supreme Court behaves like the Supreme Court typically likes to do and defers to presidential authority against, everything the 10th Amendment says, then it's going to be a moment of truth. It already is a moment of truth in terms of arresting these ICE and Border Patrol thugs who commit felonies right in front of the eyes of the CPD.
Yeah.
And now, mind you, there's only been rare instances where CPD officers have turned in their fellow officers. I mean, actually, the John Birch, this is a whole other story here, but John Birch, that whole decades-long scandal of police torture in this town started in large part not just due to the efforts of the people who have been tortured themselves and also heroic attorneys like Flint Taylor, but it was an anonymous CPD informant writing on CPT letterhead, "Hey, Mr. Taylor, you should look into this. You should look into that." So there are, even in outfits such as the CPD, there can be some individuals who turn.
Yeah.
But it's not like the National Guard. The National Guard are much more likely to turn to our side.
Last question for you. And also, it's hard for any organization to turn against itself internally. That's just organizational behavior, unfortunately. Of course,
yeah.
So people seek to protect their own. But last question. Is there a world where there is any type of immigration policy that is tolerable?
There was no immigration policy for the vast majority of the history of this country. And the United States thrived because of it. I mean, people just walked through Ellis Island for the most part, unless you were like...
They got a name, an ID. They came in, they could work.
They didn't have any ID back then. I mean, let's be real. I mean, unless you're coming in and it looks like you got whooping cough or something, or tuberculosis.
Right. You were getting
you're in like Flint. And that's what led to the dynamism of the U.S. economy for decades and decades. That's why Japan, which was seen as being, they're going to take over the United States circa, Die Hard 1. It's been a disaster ever since because they've cut off the immigration. You look at, I hate to support the titans of industry, but you look at the percentage of entrepreneurs who are immigrants versus native born, and it's way out of proportion to their numbers in this country.
But it is still 80% Americans and 20% immigrants.
Yeah,
I promise you, I
don't doubt it.
I'm from the tech industry.
Well, did you know that in the city of Chicago in the late 19th century, 75% of our inhabitants here were immigrants.
Yeah, but
and
all I'm saying is in the asset class of venture capital, the Americans do it the best. And I was born in San Jose. But I know that we have had a sect.
Wave your flag.
I am, but I'm from the industry. But I know we have a sect of immigrants who I work with, who are some of the finest people on this planet.
Absolutely.
And I would like to work with more of them and more of us, and all of us just be.
And you look at the industry generators that MIT, Harvard, and so forth, where you have, or in our own state, Champaign, Urbana, these kids coming in from other countries. They get their education here because we've had, at least until now, and it's shifting, the best educational institutions in the world.
Right.
And they've added tremendously to the dynamism of our cities that have these good institutions. And don't get me wrong, I got a lot of problems with academia. I think that academics can be amongst the most cowardly people in the world.
Sure.
But the fact is that
I'm a street scholar.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Okay.
no, I mean, I am, right? I just
Yeah.
finished my undergrad like a month ago.
Uh-huh.
So I obviously prioritize the streets for knowledge over these fine institutions, which I agree, many of them are decaying.
And a lot of people will go there for a few years. They don't graduate, but they set up businesses and so forth. But also, I mean, American agriculture would utterly collapse. Our nursing homes would utterly collapse without immigrant labor. I mean, my late friend Chris Giovanna's had an inimitable phrase that I just love to repeat over and over again. It's like, these people who are against immigrants, who the hell do they think is going to be wiping their butt in the nursing home when the time comes?
Well, there's Americans that do that in the South too.
I know, but you look at in big expensive cities.
But I know what you mean. We're aging out. We don't have like a young to replace an old.
Yeah.
We don't have the population growth anymore.
That's right. And
like a natural population.
Yeah, natural population growth has become very expensive to raise kids and so forth, and middle class folks.
A lot of young people are opting out.
Yeah.
Which is like.
But you got the dynamism of our economy has been largely produced by immigrants over the last several decades, and we'd be effing like Japan right now in terms of. They keep on trying to prime the pump in Japan. I mean, they are in deep doo-doo in terms of their debt level because tried to stimulate the economy over and over again. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
All this deficit spending. Now, we've got lots of deficit spending here, but you can thank the military budget for that. I mean, we spend as much on our military as I believe the next 10 countries combined.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane.
It's more than the next 10 combined.
Yeah, I stand corrected. I mean, it's totally insane.
Yeah.
I mean, ICE now. I mean, one of the attorneys was telling me that their budget, ICE alone, is more than the entire countries aside from the top 13 countries. The ICE budget alone is now more than all other federal law enforcement agencies combined
in the world.
No. Federal.
Across the entire country.
Yeah. That's the kind of money they're pouring into this crap that's destroying people's lives, wrecking families, when people can't get their SNAP benefits.
Yep, I agree.
It's disgusting.
It does. Andy, we're gonna come back together because we have like 1,000 things to talk about, and also things are still progressing.
Well, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
I mean,
appreciate it.
It's been awesome to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you.
And I always think for people that are listening, you have some of the deepest insights on the ground.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate you for disagreeing.
I learned from other people.
Like, I'm not trying to be overly assertive with my opinion, but I learn a tremendous amount from you. And you're still somebody that I call when I'm like, yo, what is this? So I appreciate you for that. And then thanks for sharing your knowledge with our audience.
Well, I learn a lot from other people. I try and keep my eyes open and try and read as much as I can.
And you have so many books. We have to come back and just walk around your library.
I'll have to clean up then.
How many do you have? Like 5,000?
Oh, God, I don't know.
Are they mostly political, historical, politics, and history?
It's all nonfiction.
Okay, last question now. Favorite book ever of all of your books on your entire shelf? Just one. Or that one that people should go read.
American the King Years, Parting the Waters.
King Years. I have that.
And then the reason why I love that book, and I'm going to name another one because I'm going to cheat, is that it showed the civil rights movement for all its warts. I mean, I think people like myself and anyone who's an activist often gets discouraged about all the petty infighting, all the troubles, and all the stuff that is thrown our way. If you read a true history of the civil rights movement, about all the petty infighting, the crap that they had to deal with, and yet they were able to end at least formal American apartheid. Despite all of that. That's truly astounding and also gives me hope for in spite of our own current. There was a book that as a bored junior high student who was not a reader at all. It was a rainy day in Holland, New York. And I pulled this book off of my mom's shelves. and it was very in my heart. It wounded me.
Oh,
And
sure.
the scales fell off my eyes. If anything is going to make you an
Yeah.
un-American, anti-patriot, it's
It's
the
that.
genocide against the Native Americans when you've been taught all this
Yeah.
by your history teachers. I instantly lost respect for the overwhelming majority of the adults around me because I had been lied to so ferociously
Sure.
to cover up a genocide. And of course, we didn't get to talk about this, but we've got a genocide right now continuing in Palestine. The ethnic cleansing of the West Bank, the amount of violence against Palestinians has accelerated. And if anyone says, well, the Democrats are going to be, they're so great, blah, 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 they're the ones who presided over this genocide until Biden left the White House, and they lied about it over and over again.
Yeah.
And I think that anyone who's searching for getting a better world has got to set their sights higher than choosing one genocidal party over another.
Yeah. I agree with you.
So thank you, Chris. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Andy.